welcome for myself and Helena, who are going to be having a nice conversation this afternoon about all things Anne Lister and where our lives and our work have overlapped, and also obviously Helena's background and work over 35 years now with Anne Lister, and my work over about 5 or 6. So I'm new to the game. So this afternoon we've got an hour now to talk. There's so much to talk about, and some of you may have heard us both speaking at different events as well. But today we're going to look at, again, what we've worked on together, how Anne's been shared, and why we like her, I think today is kind of the main theme, why we have fallen for this woman to share her story as much as we can. We'll then be looking at our publications and how we've worked to share her story, and where Helena's been speaking at and being asked to speak at. And then finally, we'll look at a bit of truth versus fiction. Because Anne Lister, I don't know if you've heard, she's in a television series recently that BBC apparently, and HBO. So we'll talk a little bit about that later on as well. So there's lots and lots to cover. So what we're going to do is we're going to plough through. We've got a bit of an outline for today. We've got lots of pictures as well, but we'll probably go off topic slightly.
Yeah, we usually do.
We usually do. So the first thing we thought we'd do is introduce ourselves a little bit, our collaborations and lives with Anne Lister, and about why we kind of like her, I suppose. So I think let's start with Helena. Tell us a little bit about when you first came across Anne and how she's been involved in your life over this last 35 years.
Thank you, and it's lovely to greet you all again here at Holdsworth House. And I would also like to greet friends perhaps around the globe who are watching and listening. I first met Anne Lister, or shall I say her journals, in the archives. I'd gone to university as a mature student and took my degree and became a teacher, but fairly late in life. And really I'd gone to university because I wanted to write, basically. And I decided that I would try and find somebody local to tone my talents. Well, I'm sorry, but the talents never moved on in this first story because I found Anne Lister. I knew that she had some letters down in the archives, and I thought I would start with her letters. But the archivist said, "Did you know she kept a journal?" And when he put the journals upon the reader printer, I could see immediately that there was a great challenge, because some of the entrance entries were in code, and that immediately triggered off, if you like, an intellectual challenge to me. What did a woman living 200 years before me in my hometown, what did she need to put so secret in an esoteric code? So I'm sure that some of you must have heard this before, that I took 50 pages of the journal home with me, photocopied them, and the archivist gave me a key to the code, and I went home and I made it a mission every week to go down to the archives, get 50 pages of the journals and decode them. I think we will probably see
we'll come back to some of the coded pages shortly. You can see how difficult a task Helena bravely undertook, really. And so it was about 6 years, wasn't it, of work before you first published?
Yes. Yes, it took me between 5 and 6 years. I'd gone through 5,500 pages and decoded every extract that was in code. I'd read the lot as well, but it was the code that was challenge, of course, although our handwriting is almost as much of a challenge.
Yeah, I've looked at pages when I've known what I was looking for and still not found it because my writing is even worse than mine. So, so there has been a challenge. You were undeterred, and so you first published in 1988.
I did, and our first book was called I Know My Own Heart, because one of Anne Lister's sayings were, and she took it from Rousseau, "I know my own heart and I know men, and I dare to say I am different from any other that lived." Anne Lister was convinced that her lesbian unique to her. She hadn't come across anybody else with the same inclinations, perhaps, apart from Isabella Norcliffe, but different variations of sexuality. And she thought that her own was unique. But that's something that will come out in the as we go along.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were instantly hooked then. Did you have any idea then that this would become a life's work?
No, absolutely not. I worked in complete isolation for 5 years. I must admit it was the best 5 years of my time with Alice. Nobody else had it. It was, I wasn't secretive about it. You know, a lot of people knew that I was doing something, but they weren't aware of what it was. But yes, it was a sort of an hidden or quiet scholarship, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and I think that's what we'll cover first is how, you know, Gentleman Black didn't just come out of the blue, did it? There's been a lot of things happening before that up until 2019 this year. So again, obviously, I listed the things that are remarkable is the sheer volume of work. So 5 million words. Samuel Pepys wrote about 2 million, drop in the ocean. So what she's left us with is this remarkable archive of everyday life of a woman. Again, admittedly, you know, she had an estate and eventually, so quite well off. But she recorded everything: the temperature, how she felt,
the day she went to bed, the time she went to bed,
yeah,
how she got up.
Meticulous then.
Yeah,
so was she quite OCD, as we might say today? Was she quite obsessive then about?
Very obsessive. Yes. I think a diarist like Anne. I think this is a form of obsession, quite frankly. Yes. She even, as she went on, recorded her bowel movements.
Were they code or were they handwritten?
Sorry?
Was that in the code or that kind of thing? Or?
Sometimes and sometimes not. Yes. Okay. Yes.
So meticulously recorded life that you delved straight into and got hooked.
Yes, and waiting for the next 50 pages. It was like a cliffhanger, as you used to call it. And well, probably not many of you younger people will know, but we used to go Saturday morning when we were kids to the cinema, and it would be left at, you know, pearl white laid on the railroad truss, and a train would be coming. But you had to wait next Saturday to see whether she got killed or not.
And that's perhaps how we feel today with obviously the publications that are out.
Yeah,
over certain years, but there's still gaps. And I think a lot of us are still waiting for that full transcript. That 5 million words, that would be about sort of 25, 30 books, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all amazing page turning, is it?
Oh, no,
so,
no.
It's quite some...
Yes, when she puts detail, particularly about when she starts developing the coal mines, and it's how many cords of coal can we get out of the mine? When she's building Shibden, how many roots of wood do I need? And I think, and meticulous financial calculations that go on and on. So there's quite a lot of it that you just trudge through quite slowly.
So that's why we're thankful for you to pulling out the juicy bits.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Juicy.
Yeah, well, that's what's good about our lister is that, again, we have, you know, a record of a woman from 200 years ago who recorded everything, her relationships, but also the fact that lesbian history, we have somebody who was, I would say, definitely gay. Because a lot of people we can attribute, we can think they may well have been, but we know for sure. And that's what gives us confidence to share her story as a lesbian story. Again, quotes like this just make it easy for the historian to say what she was getting up to. So I love and only love the fairer sex, and thus beloved of them in turn, my heart revolts from any other love than theirs. And that was in 1821. She definitely knew her own mind.
That was her lesbian credo. Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how we met. We met back, first of all, in 2014. Now, I've actually got Helena's book here. This was your book that was reproduced in 2010. And you signed, this is actually signed from Helena to me, on the 29th of June 2014.
Oh, right.
So that was when you were at Shibden giving a conference.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to remember, so 2014, when we had conferences with about 30 people,
yeah.
And we really had to push to sell the ticket. And then you were at the Minster not long ago with, was that 600 people?
Amazing.
So everybody now has heard of Anne Lister. So there's been lots of things happening. So this first slide, that's me. I really think it should. So I came in from working at the Royal Armies. I'm a women's historian, and I'd always been drawn to women who were a bit different. I looked at women in the military, women who cross-dressed, and done roles that weren't really expected of them. Ironically, though, I started at Backfield Museum and hadn't heard of Anne Lister. So when I got the job as collections manager, which I'm responsible for all the stuff and therefore interpreting it and sharing the stories, I was gobsmacked that I hadn't heard of her, and there wasn't really much information about her. Now, the staff were more than happy to talk to people about Anne Lister, but we didn't really do anything in the hall. But luckily, in 2015, when we left, there was some Arts Council funding. So we did some new interpretation, including information about Anne Lister, and we also did a new AV unit. So this is Helena, this was back in 2015, and this was the first time we to really share diaries and what they looked like. So we created this where you could see a page of Anne's handwriting, quite legible, a transcription easy to read type, and we also recorded somebody from the area reading the extracts as well, just to share. And Helena worked with us on that. We picked the extracts and wrote a short essay on all the different facets of Anne. So about her sexuality, but also about how she was a successful businesswoman and a landowner and a traveller and a scholar and a mountain climber. So there's many, many facets to Anne that we've always liked to share as much as possible. We also interviewed you.
I look tired.
You look better now than you did. So this was 2016. I meant that in a really good way. So we filmed Helena in 2016, long before Sally had sort of come onto the scene. And I was wanting to just ask you all these questions that I'd done a bit of research and I had the job of sharing Anne's story. There was so much I didn't know.
I know. So
in this interview, I think we talked to you for about an hour and a half.
You can tell.
I wore her out with my questions.
Like this.
And in this interview, this is what first piqued my interest about Anne writing her fictionally, because I knew from what you'd said that the job of fully transcribing the diaries and sharing them and editing them and doing little footnotes is 5, 10, 15 years worth of work. So back in 2016, I started penning an idea for a novel about Anne Lister. But at the time, I thought no one's ever going to read this. Little did we know.
Yes,
Little did we know.
Yes.
So the next thing we had, this was her Anne Lister's birthday, which is something we've all celebrated at Shibden on a small scale until more recently. So this was actually 2018.
Yes.
This is Sally Wainwright and Anne Chover and myself and Helena. So in 2018, news was getting out that there was going to be a TV series, originally called Shibden, which would have been a really good marketing tool for Shibden, but not quite as catchy as Jungle and Jack. So this was at the birthday celebrations. And this talk, again, we had about 30 of us, wasn't there? There was about 30 of us for this day, or Anne Lister's birthday last year.
That was a superb cake.
Oh, it was a fantastic cake opened, and it was a rainbow cake, which was amazing inside. So that was 2018. As well, published the Anne Lister Shibden book, basically to give an overview. Helena's book obviously cover the earlier years and her relationships. So what we needed was a potted history of Anne for those who weren't quite ready to delve straight into the diaries. So I produced that and worked with you a little bit on that in 2018. And we also, this image at the bottom, is scanning the diaries. Now, lots of people turn up at Shibden and kind of expect to just flip through the diaries, but they're locked away quite safely. So we realised that we needed to scan them. Now, the scan that Helena had worked on was off the old microfilm.
Yes, but luckily they were able to enlarge the pages, thank goodness. So that made it quite a bit easier for me. It was still a difficult task, but yes.
Yes, we've got much better images now, which makes them a bit more readable.
Yes,
but still a huge task to actually transcribe them. And then the last thing we did together, which was in this April 3rd, Anne Lister's birthday this year, was opening the blue plaque, and that was unveiled by Helena along with Jill Liddington as well. So commemorating Anne as a diarist, primarily, that's her main sort of legacy, is 5 million words. As a businesswoman, landowner, traveller, and lesbian, who recorded much of her personal life in a secret code when she lived at Shibden Hall. from 1815 to 1840. And to not give too much of a spoiler, she died whilst travelling in Russia in 1840, age 49. So she was
49, yeah.
If she'd have lived, do you think she would have shared the diaries or published herself?
She had mixed feelings about the journals. She said that she wanted them to read in her older age when the first flush of youth was gone and she could relive the memories. But I'm not so sure. She was so confident that no one would ever be able to crack the code. But of course, shall we tell the story of cracking the code?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So this is a
this
page.
is a plain hand. You see, I am not made like any other. Yeah. In 1823, she wrote that in her journals there. This is what's known as a plain hand. And if you look, you can see how she abbreviated practically every word. So the abbreviations are quite tricky as the code. But you become quite good at doing it after you've read almost 2,000.
So yeah. Well, I can't.
Now, this is the code. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about this then. You weren't faced by this then? You thought, I'm going to crack this?
Well, when I started, I realised that there's absolutely no punctuation in that code. There is a full stop. You can't tell where one sentence starts and one ends. It's up to the transcriber to think how many of these words construct a sentence. What is the sense of this sentence? Is it coherent? Does it read properly? So of course, as you go on, you're actually building the text yourself out of all these symbols. And yeah, it was tricky, but it was good. I've always enjoyed the decoding. I like the decoding.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, in decoding were the secrets. Yeah. So there we go.
So tell us a bit more about this. So this was your piece you gave to me. So this
Yeah.
is there's, as well as coded writing, there's also other codes and abbreviations. So can you tell us a bit more about those? And can you tell us a bit more about these then? So every page is numbered and has the year.
Yes, right at the top. She would number the page at the top. And then she'd put in the year, say 1832. And then it would say July, Tuesday, the 27th. Then she would put time rising, sometimes 4:30 a.m., sometimes 6 a.m. She made a rule never to lay in bed after 6 o'clock if she could help it, yeah. So, and time to, and then going to bed at night, just under. She had the signs and symbols. They were like things like keys to unlock what was going on in the day. So down in the margin, she would have all these signs and symbols. A letter received with L, N, a note received, a sort of a note from a neighbour saying that we're coming to tea or invited.
Like a text
yeah. So she called on Anne, and if it had a tick at the side and the C, Anne calls on someone, then we get quite esoteric here. Yes, well, a successful sexual session. Very nice for her. And her partner, of course. The X was private auto-erotic practices. That was always an occasion of guilt for Anne, because as a Christian, a practicing Christian, she would think that was sinful. So when you saw the X like that, it would be followed with incurred a cross. And I always took that word incurred means you have brought something on yourself, that you brought some misfortune on yourself, and the cross. And I always thought that was quasi-religious, shall I say, incurred a cross. And she was always praying for her to stop this, to God to help her to stop this practice. If the other cross, usually the addition cross there, she was reading a book. I had to think a bit about the HCL. It took me a while, and then I realised it was a Halifax circulating library. And she was a great reader. Of course, she used to go down to the library she would bribe the librarian to 5 shillings a year to give her extra books. And then the intertwined S's means there was a footnote, so you would look at the bottom of the page to find out what that related to. So, you know, as I said, these were keys which would unlock certain activities throughout the day.
Yeah.
Not all at once. They were not every day and all at once.
I think this, even just looking at this slide, to me, this gives us so much information about Anne, that A, she recorded all this intimate detail. You can see that she's very sociable, and she's also very keen on reading and learning. And then also she's got this sort of hidden passion, and the fact that you say, you know, to hear you saying about her incurring that as if it was negative having pleasure.
I know what she felt.
And that makes you feel, I want to go back and give her a hug almost and say, okay. And so again, I think that reveals the conflicts that she had throughout her life about her sexuality and having partners. Obviously, she did have successful sexual sessions, so she obviously felt bad, but that didn't stop her pursuing how she felt.
There were other symbols to do with it.
Oh, sorry. Check your eyes, check your eyes.
Okay.
Let's go back, let's go back. You feel dead?
I'll take that one off.
Oh, sorry. I feel trigger happy. It was the sexual sessions. Oh, there we go. That one.
Oh yes, there is the code in all its glory. If you look at the vowels, she used a number for each vowel. A, but she started with 2, 1. A was 2, E was 3, I 4, A, E, I, O 5, and U 6. So you know that if people latched onto that, if you would have all the vowels there, yes. But the rest were. And
then all this other stuff as well, with the double letters.
And these were quite clever, where she had the double consonants. She had different symbols for double consonants. Underlining of a letter means a repetition, or a dot above a letter, repetition. So there was a lot for me to understand and to tease out. Yes. You think, what's this, you know, so. It really kept me occupied for 5 years. But luckily, the code, once you familiarise yourself with it, sometimes you can read the code a bit better than you can read a handwriting.
And how much would you say you think was in code overall, as you've read all of that? How much do you think was in code?
I think, once her romantic life was over, which I think was when she came back home, and started to develop coal mines and that. The coded portions the coded extracts got less and less. There was less sex for a start, and water wasn't the most precious. Oh well, we won't go there. So the sex tailed off, and therefore the coded extracts tailed off. It would be just short ones about, you know, we did have a kiss last night. The kiss, of course, meant orgasm. So you know, you would realise that if she had a kiss last night, it wasn't a chaste kiss on the forehead before we went to sleep. Right? Okay. So all that seems to taper off. I would say that 1/6, I believe, has been assessed as being code. But that was quite a considerable amount.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and then we've got, this was somebody else's.
Yes, this gentleman did a very analytic breakdown of the types of codes: number codes, letter codes, Greek codes, bracket codes, line codes, arithmetic codes, tilde codes. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Punctuation codes and miscellaneous codes. I thought that was very clever. But there you go.
And then there was another as well.
Yeah.
Just to make it more complicated.
This is a consonant code. If you look at those strange words, there are no consonants. There are no vowels at all. It is a consonant code, and I think that was a second code that Anne devised to write to Mariana, because the original code was between her and Nazarene, her first lover. And then once Mariana married and moved in with her rich husband in Lawton Hall over in Cheshire, he became very suspicious of Anne Lister, and he began opening his wife's letters to see what they were writing about. And they were always writing about, wanted to be good when Charles died. So that was very happy. And he used to die. He killed into his 80s. So Anne said, enough of that, and she devised this code to write to Mariana. But we only have 2 instances in the whole of the journals, because I think it just went into Anne's letters to Mariana. And in those days, they would say, bring all my letters back to me and we will burn them. You know, anything sexually incriminating. So she and Mariana would burn each letters. So with very little of that.
It's such a shame, isn't it? I think that's where the diaries are fascinating, but what we have is quite one-sided.
Yeah.
Anne talking about herself and what she thinks about other people.
Yes.
But we don't have much about Anne, do we?
No.
So the letters would have been fabulous.
Patricia Hughes did the, I think she had something to do with that code there. Yes, but I think she's writing an article about the code, so we might learn more about that one.
Yeah, we'll see what she does. So Patricia Hughes published The Secret Life. Was it Eliza Ray?
Eliza Ray, yeah, the strange.
So it was about the strange case. Eliza
Strange case.
Yeah, strange tale. Yeah. So so that book was the 1817 sort of about then, wasn't it? It was when I was
the book itself. Oh, well,
no, that
she
was
met Eliza Ray in 1806.
So that's when we were
they were at school together.
And then she's published 1817, a transcription from
Yes, she did 1 year.
Yeah,
Patricia, yes.
So there's other bits and pieces out there to pull the puzzle together. So rather morbidly now, we've got, so just talking about Anne and her life. So she died when she was 49 while travelling with Anne Walker, who was her wife, in Georgia. So again, if she'd come back, we don't know what she might have written, published, shared. Also, there's a bit of a gap between when she finished her diary because she ran out of room, and then there was a 6-week gap before she died. Now, she'd written a diary every day since she was about 15, 16.
Yes, and it started in 1806.
Yeah.
And there were 3 little words started off this voluminous diary of 5 million words.
5 million,
5 million words, yes. And it was Eliza left us. And that is the first entry in that huge journal.
Yeah.
And that was because her schoolgirl lover had been staying with her in Halifax. They had a house at King Cross, had Captain Lister and his wife and family. And then they moved down to a place called Ellen Royd. I don't know whether any of the older people, it was down where the old railway down at North Bridge, there was a railway line went to the North Bridge. Does anybody remember that? I do, I'm so old. I must be the only one that has these memories in this room. And so they moved down there. But Eliza Ray came to stay with them. And of course, Anne was heartbroken when she left. And that's what started the journal. You know, just those 3 little words.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what she's left us with, 5 million is still a real estimate, isn't it? Because we've had the diary scanned. And so what we did was took sample pages from each volume, counted each line, multiplied, did lots of maths basically, and we've come out with about 4,800,000 something. But as you saw in the earlier pages, nearly every word is abbreviated. And sometimes it might be a few words abbreviated. So trying to actually get an exact number is still very difficult, but between 4 and 6 million definitely. And then on top of that, she also wrote 14 volumes of travel notes and all the letters. Sadly, I think we've got about 1,200 letters that have survived. But we looked at those. Did you have a look at any letters?
I looked at the ones that I needed for the books, let's put it that way, because her letters are quite high flown. The language in the letters is totally different to the informality of language in the journals. and they're quite hyper, quite tedious to read through. Yes.
So two sides of Anne, I suppose, revealed in those two outlets of letters to other people and also in the diaries. So when she died overseas, her body was brought back to Halifax. It took about 8 months, and then she was interred in Halifax Parish Church, which is now Halifax Minster. And what seems to remain is these bits of a tombstone from inside the church. It seems that they moved some of the bodies around and they buried them all again to make a ramp bit in the church. There's lots of mystery about the other bits and, you know, how come she ended up there. There's talk that she was put into a coffin to preserve the body and it was too large to go in the Lister corner. And obviously it's said Anne Walker accompanied the body all the way back. So again, that would have been traumatic. You couldn't make it up, could you really? It's a dramatic story.
Shocking,
just tragic sort of all the way through, really. So let's see what I've got to say. So Shibden Hall. So what we have then is the diaries. We've then got Helena's work, sharing the diaries, and we've also got her own. This is something that, again, it just shouts Anne Lister to me. So you have the diaries, you have her words, but the fact that you can visit where she's been, you must have been visiting here for a few decades now, guys. So this must have a place in your heart as well.
Oh, Shibden. Well, when we were very small, we lived down the bottom end of town, and there was no greenery. My father was an Irishman, and he couldn't bear the fact he used to say his kids never see to greenery, because he was brought up in a remote part of Ireland, and he thought, you know, all the stone and everything. Although it was nice to play in the peace hall. We used to play in the peace hall, so that was good. So he used to take us up to Shibden every Sunday after my mother had exhausted herself making Sunday dinner. And from then on, of course, Shibden was like a thread through my life, but never went into the house. We just used to play in the park. So I grew up, I never knew anything about Anne Lister, but I didn't even know about the house. I don't think I even knew there was a house there when I was a child. Yeah. But there was a little old house there, Cripplegate.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yes, it was in the ground, and it was part of medieval Halifax. And John Lister, when they were taking down all the old buildings in Halifax, he got that house and he re-established it in Shibden Park. And I remember playing up and down the stairs on that. And then Anne Lister, of course, went and built a moss house in Shibden Park. So
we'll come back to that.
Yes.
So I think with Shibden, obviously I started working there 5 years ago. So what I noticed quite a lot is how much of Anne Lister is in this building. She added this tower and the wing to the right-hand side. She built the lake at the bottom that, again, many people will know from their childhoods and visiting. She built the gatehouse that you passed on the A58. It was all about making Shibden rather grand.
Yes, she wanted to call it Shibden Castle.
Oh,
her friends said, no, that's not too pretentious.
And we've definitely not been under threat or invasion for many centuries, so I think we're quite safe. But you can see it, so her influence is everywhere. And inside, in the main house body, she raised the ceiling, she built a new staircase, she put her initials in the corners as well. So she really put her stamp on it. But what tragically happened was, by the time she was with Anne Walker and was obviously more comfortably financially, they went travelling on this 2-year sort of expedition and never came back. But if she had come back, if anybody's visited, on the back of the tower, you can see some recesses and a place where a door would be added to build the next bit of the wing to make Shibden into that square castle. She probably would then knock down the barn because she didn't like the idea of being a farm. But tragically, that would have lost one of the oldest barns in the country and all of the stories that tells us as well. So I think when you're at Shibden, everything about it is Anne, isn't it, in a way? Because of the way it passed to her wife, Anne Walker, for her lifetime. When she died, it then was given to a Dr. John Lister, who moved over with his family, and then his son, John, is the one who finally inherited and spent all the money doing things like rebuilding Cripplegate in the grounds of Shibden, letting the kids play in it, and then it got demolished. So unfortunately, he had no money left. And so the house and all of its contents were passed to the Halifax Corporation, which became Holdsworth Council, and it became a museum straight away. So that's why it's kind of like a time capsule. And a lot of furniture, especially the big pieces, would have all been there when Anne was there. But when it comes to possessions, we don't really have very much. Because she didn't have any descendants, and because of Anne Walker not being allowed to stay at the hall and having such a short life after, but things like sort of, again, any other notebooks and bits and pieces, any clothing, jewellery, all of that is just gone. So keep an eye out on eBay and things, because now the name is more known. More people are coming forward with things and spotting her handwriting. Her book collection, again, with the she recorded all the books she bought, and they would have been in the thousands, wouldn't they? But we've got 6 today. So somewhere out there are lots and lots of books, and she meticulously wrote her name and date in front of all of them. So somewhere is a library filled with all these books. So what we do have left there, this I've been talking about it here. So this is a house, again, fortified. I don't think anyone was going to attack Shibden, but she liked this architecture.
Well, she would go, especially when she was on the continent, she had a great love of the Gothic, and she would say, that's a beautiful example for Shibden, and she would draw a little sketch, and then it would reproduce it when she found the money, or should I say found Anne Walker's money, to Shibden.
And so one of the things that we do have left, rather sadly, is funeral hatchment. So these are created and hung outside on the gates to let people know we're visiting, that the owner had died. And this one has got the red triangle, which means a spinster. Little did they know that she was married, twice, in fact. How about Mariana? Because they did marry, didn't they? Anne and Mariana.
Mariana, yes.
So what did they have?
I'm talking about the lesbian marriage. Yes, and if she wanted, Mariana was her first choice of wife, and she wanted to try and have the rituals that a heterosexual couple would have. And the first thing was, they had to commit to each other, take a vow of commitment. Well, they did that, and she did that with Anne Walker. Are we going to talk about that later, or shall I say this?
No, go for it.
Yeah, well, yes, Anne Walker, they made the same commitment. The next step was they had to exchange rings, and they did that, both Mariana and Anne Walker. And then the last thing, to make the marriage a Christian marriage in the eyes of God, they had to take communion together at church. And she did that with Mariana, I believe. But with Anne Walker, they were in York, and they made the commitment. They had exchanged rings, and they went to the altar of the little church in York, and they knelt at the altar and took communion together. And Anne Lister wrote in her journal, I prayed that our union would now be blessed by God. I do not think Anne had any such thought in her mind. So although, the lesbian community had taken that as the first lesbian marriage, for Anne Lister, yes, but Anne Walker wasn't sufficiently, what shall I say, in the spirit of the thing. So I think she was quite oblivious that what Anne was thinking, which was rather a shame. But there we go. It's become sort of an icon, hasn't it, the church? Yeah. So it's a nice thought, it's a nice icon to have.
Yeah. So back to so Anne herself then, what we have is obviously the image that we know of Anne, that's the main portrait. We've also got these 2 images attributed as being Anne. So what do you think she might have looked like? And these or surround or how do you
That's after really.
No, it's been one that I think the prominence is that it's always been at Shibden. But that's kind of all we know.
Yeah. I can see that it probably could be. It's the curls. But that one was a watercolour done by a school friend of hers. Yes, and I think that was around about 8 later. Yeah.
And then interestingly, the other portrait that we think was painted after she died looks very similar to this. But there is a reference to Anne and Anne both being sketched for portraits before they went travelling. But when Anne came back, we don't know if she didn't keep going. We don't know if she then commissioned that portrait of Anne. Because if she did, she would have had a say in it, and then we can be confident that it looked like her. But We just don't know, do we? There's not more research to be done.
The thing is that the artist has put her in brown clothing. Well, she never ever wore anything but black for a certain time. That's my favourite, because she looks like a young clergyman there. But I think it just enhances her masculinity apart from the curls. The curls, of course, were false. She would have them taken to the hair and have them dressed in town, and then clipped, yes. But I think that is the more realistic one of all the three.
Okay, yeah. So that's how you picture it.
Yes, I do.
So
yes, till Sarah Jones came along.
And that's what we can picture.
And I think, go with Sarah. You're in my mind. You shouldn't be. Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. So let's skip through. So part 2, we'll carry straight on. So this is sharing our stories. So let's have a look at the books that you've done, and then we'll come to Gentlemen as well. So first book that you published, so this was I Know My Own Heart. So this was 1988.
1988, that was the first publication, yes.
So how did this come about then? Were you...
Yes, I was very worried actually, because of course the Lister family were so well known in the family. There were no descendants. So I wasn't hurting anybody, let's put it that way, you know. But I still knew it could have erupted as a great scandal. So I was, I felt like going into hiding or something for a little while. And the people at work were saying, "Are you going to put your own name on it?" And I went, "Well, you've got to stand up and count it, haven't you? You know, if you've done it, you've done it. What's the point of doing a pseudonym, especially on something that's true and historical? And why wouldn't I own my own work? Yeah. So on publication day, I was worried, but it went off basically without a ripple. Although I do believe that at the beginning, Shibden Hall was very reluctant to stop the book. Yes, I found that out from some lesbian friends of mine. They didn't want the scandal.
Because I wasn't
for many years. They didn't. No, they didn't.
Yeah, and also this was a time, I think the Shibden Hall is the fact that this whole period, you were a teacher as well, so at this time, teachers, again, councils were not allowed to talk about homosexuality.
Absolutely.
And so you couldn't be in any way endorsed. That's a horrible word, but that's kind of what it was. So I think Shibden Hall has always sort of struck, it's been a museum since the 1930s, and they've always been in that kind of difficult position where they've got this amazing story to share, and yet they weren't sort of freely able to.
No,
and it's a shame it took so long. Like I said, when I started the stuff, I was very happy to talk to people about Anne Lister, but it wasn't until 2015, which is quite late to the party, that we actually got the first panel of information that said Anne Lister lived here, and relationships with women, and she married somebody. So we fully outed her really in 2015. But before then, there'd been other publications and things. So yeah, she couldn't stay in the closet any longer. And then just from I Know My Own Heart, it's talking about her in black and being a bit different. Just to quote from your book, so 1817, this is the 2nd of September. This is Anne Lister. She writes, "Went to drink tea with the Miss Walkers of Hill." So this is one of her first meetings with Anne Walker, who was a lot younger. And this is the book where she puts, "Went in black silk, the first time to an evening visit. I have entered on my plan of always wearing black." And that's what makes her so unique.
Yes,
she decided
so brave.
And she's so and very brave to do. And that was in 1817. And ironically, the day she first did it was when she first met Miss Walker. She met her again in this book. So this is 1821. And 12th of June, she's out for a walk and was walking away. And Anne Walker of Crow Nest overtook me, having run herself almost out of breath. Walked with her as far as Liggett entrance. I don't know how to Lidgate. Oh, I can't read my own writing. My writing is worse to their own grounds at home. She's put in 1821. Made myself, as I fancied, very agreeable, and was particularly civil and attentive in my manner. I really think the girl is flattered by me and likes it. Flirting with Anne Walker. But then, in 1822, a year later, in June, she writes about Anne Walker. She is a stupid, vulgar girl. And then nothing much happens until 10 years later. So it's great that this book sort of touched on what we now know much more from.
It's funny how the stupidity, the vulgarity disappeared when she used you in an area.
What's attracted you to the millionaire Miss Yorkshire.
Got to say something, I might make something of her.
Yes.
I wonder if I can mould her to my ways.
And it sounds awful, again, when you think about the diaries, this was for Anne to read only herself. She would be horrified if you read it and judged that she was so predatory, because in your diary, you do write things like, I hope this person dies and I inherit, because that's actually what you're thinking, isn't it? So I forgive her for sounding a bit gross. I've written a nice version in my novel. So then we have No Peace but Love. This was 1993.
Yes.
This was the follow-up. So tell us about what the book covers.
Well, this book covers 2 years in Paris and a little bit more than that. But with Mariana safely married Chelsea and Anne heartbroken over it all, she decided that she would travel and visit Paris. She loved Paris. She'd been once before with her aunt in 1819. She'd also contracted a venereal infection from Mariana, who'd got it from her husband. Her husband was a very loose-living man. He would frequent the brothels, for instance, in London, and he wasn't above waylaying the young servant maids in the fields, and he fathered a child on his gatekeeper's wife. So he was a very, very immoral man, and of course, bringing the results home, yes, and pass it on to Mariana, pass it on to Anne, yes, and so Anne was really worried about this, and she decided that one of the reasons she wanted to go to Paris for was to get the expert medical attention that she could get there. So she went to, for about 6 months she was in Paris, from September 1824 to the end of March 1825. And during that time she had a really strong love affair, sexual affair, with a young widow, Maria Barlow, who was in Paris with her daughter. And met up at 24 Place Vendôme, which is quite an elite area of Paris, and is even more elite today, in the Ritz, and that was where poor Diana was walking out of the Ritz, yeah, and all these beautiful jeweller shops, and nobody able to afford to live in Place Vendôme now, and then she and Maria Barlow decided to set a book together at a house at 15 Quai Voltaire, and she lived for 3 months. And Maria Barlow desperately wanted to be Anne Lister's wife, but Anne Lister, she had very grave doubts about her. And the one point about it was that Anne Lister was what was known as a butch or a stone lesbian, although she wouldn't know those terms, but she had to initiate any sexual activity, etc. And she said the thing about Maria Barlow is Maria Barlow must have said to her once, I must do to you as you do to me, and said, Maria Barlow is not for me, she womanizes me too much. And so poor Maria thought she would be terribly loving and helpful, and she wasn't. She sealed her own doom. Yeah.
So tragic,
So
isn't it?
that is what that love story is about.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you did
And there's a lot of history, Parisian history. It was inspiration in Paris. It's not just all sex.
There's some culture in there as
We all
well.
look at the background of restoration Paris, yes.
And this is coming out again in January, isn't it? It's being reproduced.
Yes.
So it's on
And
Kindle.
volume 2 of
Yeah.
Secret Diaries and Miss Alice.
Flash the pictures up at the end.
Yes.
And then we're going to have to skip forward a little bit. So you've also got the Q&A book.
Oh, well,
So that's exploring much more about.
well, this is a quick book. That's, this young woman, Natasha Home, I met her in Brighton, and I found out that for almost 30 years, she'd been keeping a diary in secret code, a lesbian. And I couldn't believe that it was like a reincarnation of Anne Lister. And that she hadn't known about Anne Lister because she'd been keeping it since she was 13. So I said to her, why don't we do a comparison of a lesbian 200 years ago keeping a journaling code and a lesbian of today keeping a secret journaling code? So So we did a question and answer. It's quirky. It is good.
Worth a read.
Right.
I mean, I just here inside.
Yeah.
So we do need to skip on actually. We're getting near to. So 2010, this was when Anne's story was first kind of broadcast to a much bigger audience, wasn't it?
Oh,
so tell us a little bit about Maxine and your involvement in this. In 2010.
Yes, this film was made by the Oxford Film and TV Company, a really lovely film company. And Maxine Peake actually came to my house and she said, "I want to spend a day with you." She says, "I thought to myself, this woman knows more about Anne Lister than anybody on the planet." Which I did, I suppose, yeah.
You do?
Yes, absolutely. So she spent the day, took me to a nice restaurant for lunch, and I thought that was really good of her. She wanted to get down to the roots of how to play Anne Lister. So a very nice day with Maxine. And this, of course, this film was based on my books, whereas Sally Wainwright's episeries, which are absolutely brilliant, are based on Jill Liddington's book, yes. That's my book that this is based on, yes. So Virago brought that out. That was I Know My Own Heart originally, that they gave it a new title to go with the film.
Yeah.
And of course, Sue Perkins, I also spent a couple of days with Sue. She's yes, she is.
I'm not saying
She's very funny. Very funny. Yeah. And she said, "I'm not going to mock. I'm not going to mock." I thought, why would you mock? And then she said, "Oh, and you were sat there looking for all the juicy bits." I thought, "You're mocking."
That's a little bit.
And here I am with Mary Portas.
Yes, this was 2018. So this was Britain's Great Gay Buildings. Does exactly what it says in the tin.
Yeah.
And Shibden was included in that. It was presented overall by Stephen Fry, and highlighting some really fascinating sites, including Shibden Hall, and that was Portas.
Mary Portas, yes.
She was a character as well, wasn't she? So she came to Shibden.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, we did the Anne Lister of Shibden Hall book, which I don't think we've got for sale, but it's on Amazon, and Shibden. And then it's the Moss House.
And now your book.
And now my bit. So, so I mentioned, so I started this quite a while ago. Nobody's going to want to read this. But really, this was inspired by that interview with Helena. So in that shot where Helen was looking only ever so slightly behind, I was actually sat on the steps just behind you, wasn't I, with my list of questions, kind of prompting you. And some of the stuff you said just made me think, this is amazing. How could you, this is, if Sally made up the series, you wouldn't believe some of the things that happened. So the things that jumped out when you talked about Anne dissecting a head and a baby and attending these lectures in Paris. So if she could have done it, she would have been a scholar.
Yes, she would have. Absolutely. Yes. During a later time in Paris, she went to lectures at the Jardin des Plantes there, studying under the leading scientists of the day. And she rented a little attic room over on the left bank, and she hired a young medical student to bring her specimens from the hospital. And he brought her a woman's head once, and she said it was so full of lice I had to burn all the hair off before I could dissect the scalp. She draped the little room with sheets and that to make it look like a dissecting chamber. And another time, a fetus, she dissected a baby, a stillborn baby, obviously. I think Sally brings that in, doesn't she?
Yeah, interestingly, they filmed that scene. What's the buttery at Shibden? So they painted, they made it all look white, and they cleared out all the buttery equipment. And so they filmed that random dissection scene, which would have been in France, at Shibden. So it was a bit bizarre. Yes. There was a lot of blood everywhere, so I avoided that because I'm really scared. But it's in the novel because I just found that fascinating. And also the novel, I've written it half from Anne Lister and half from Anne Walker. So you've got Anne Lister saying, "Oh, well, I did this to explore biology and find out more about human anatomy," and Anne Walker like, "What?" Yeah. It's kind of that reaction. It's a nice contrast between the two. And the other thing that jumped out from that as well, also all the dodgy bits, it was that her father hired a prostitute for her.
Well, the theory, this was something she was telling Maria Barlow in Paris. She began to confess everything to Maria Barlow because Maria Barlow was mortified because she knew Anne Lister always wore the rings that she'd exchanged with Mariana, the gold rings, and and she also wore a locket around her neck. And the secret of that locket is that Anne was a collector of tribute, shall we say, from her women friends. And she used to collect tufts of their pubic hair. She kept it in a locket around her neck. Yes. In fact, Isabella Norcliffe called her a tuft hunter.
That sounds so fascinating.
That is that in the universities in the medieval days, the very, very rich young men from aristocratic families used to wear their robes, and they would have a tuft of fur across there to show that they were aristocrats. And the young, poor scholarship fellows that would want to curry favour with them would go chasing after them, so they were called tuft hunters. But of course, Anne's tuft hunting was a far different kind of. Yes. She had them all neatly labelled and put in a drawer. Oh, yes.
So there might be a mention of the Moss House. So I took juicy bits. And the thought of her father getting her a prostitute, I mean, for me, that just gave me such a thought that her father must have known.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of a nice thing to do in a slightly dodgy kind of way. That you might have thought that might get out of her system, or actually let her, yes, but he sealed her fate, didn't he?
Well, the point is that she said to Maria Barlow, my father once brought a person to sleep with me, and he would not have us disturbed till 3 o'clock the following day. Well, as we know, a man in that year would never have brought a man to sleep with his daughter. And of course, fathers in those days would take their sons to brothels to initiate them into how to please women. And I think that Captain Lister thought he was doing his daughter a great favour. You know, she was quite experienced by that time. I think she might have taught the ladies. She'd already had, I think, 3 lovers by that time.
So that's in the Moss House if you want to read more about it. But those are the kind of anecdotes about Anne that we know, but we don't know the full details, which is why fiction allows you to kind of run with it. But obviously the Moss House is what I went with, because to me the Moss House, it doesn't exist anymore. We know roughly where it would have been. There are mentions of the Moss House, the Chaumière, as she started to call it originally. So to me that kind of was my hook and way of having that private space where Anne Lister and Anne could actually be known, because when they were together, they lived with her father, her aunt, her sister, and her servants. Bit of a busy household. I don't know about anybody else when you might bring somebody home. It's a bit awkward.
Pauline is becoming quite a character, isn't she?
Yeah.
Accordingly, yes, Anne's maid servants,
Excuse me. So let's skip on to Gentleman Jack, because we've only got a few minutes. So Jack, so here they are, and this is the family. This is in the study, the Savary, at Shibden Hall, looking rather quirky. So obviously Sally decided to go with 1832 as the key starting point, which is when Anne's had these relationships, she's been heartbroken by Mariana. Mariana's stuck in this marriage. Mariana's story would make a really good film, wouldn't it? Yes. Because again, just such a tragic tale of marrying him thinking it would last, but actually he outlived all of them, didn't he? And they didn't have any children either. No. So if she was hoping perhaps she could get children, that didn't happen for her. And this is what put Anne off towards the end, because she said, well, what good is Mariana going to be to me? She, of course, because Mariana wouldn't inherit anything. She would be a penniless girl. So that really, she went down in the stakes and down there. Yes. I think it's not really so this is Gentleman Jack, and then just a bit, this is me in Gentleman Jack. So my background, I am still an actor originally. So when I first met Sally, before I knew anything about this, I'd sent her a film that I'd written and I was in, and she asked me to audition for a very small part. And so I was Mariana's lady's maid, Mrs. Watson, who exists in there's references to Mrs. Watson. So hopefully series 2, it will all be about Mrs. Watson. Probably not. We filmed quite a bit actually, but some of it was cut, so I only in it very briefly. But then he stood with some horses looking at me, thinking, what are you doing? But it was quite, to be part of that. And one of the scenes we filmed that didn't make it into the final series was riding into Shibden on the top of the carriage with the coachman, with Mariana inside, and Anne stood in the doorway. It was really weird, because we're riding in corset and full of regalia, bonnet curls, and seeing Anne Lister stood at the doorway. It was very spooky. But I didn't use it, unfortunately. Possibly because I waved at the camera. I haven't been told why not. So that was me in my train with Mrs. Watson. And then this is sort of bits of costume and things. So yeah, it was just a remarkable experience for me. I was very fortunate to be part of. So just to finish up, so come back to your book. So this is Secret Diaries of Miss Anne Lister, which is available here.
Yeah.
So part 2 is No Priest But Love.
Yes, they put the title under there, No Priest But Love.
Yeah.
So but they're now making it volume 2 of the Secret Diaries.
Yeah. So they're both on Kindle at the moment, and this one's January.
Said yes.
Yeah, so tell us a bit to finish about the biography, the huge biography.
Oh, yes.
We're waiting for.
Yes. Well, for about the last 2 decades, I've been writing the huge biography of Anne Lister, on and off, mostly off, but quite a lot on. Yes. So, and I'm hoping to get the publisher for it. We're just now sort of getting together a proposal to send round. It's from Jeremy Lister's involvement in the American War of Independence, and comes right through from 1775 up to 1826, where Anne becomes the owner of Shibden Hall. So fingers crossed. It is, after I've made 500,000 words long. So I don't know about any publisher going to be brave enough to take it on or has enough money, but Bravo might do it. They have asked for some chapters from, so we'll see.
Yeah, well, hopefully that will be coming out. So, well, hopefully that might coincide with Series 2, which will be out in 2021.
Yes, I would like it to be out then,
So,
if we get a publisher.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. The interest at the moment is just huge.
Yes, it is.
Well, we're going to have to finish because the food is going to be served. But we had half a page of more things to talk about. We're going to talk about whether we liked how people have now so much information about Anne Lister. There's so much more to be found out about her, so much more research. We don't know what Series 2 is going to be about, do we?
No, we don't, actually. Yeah.
So we'll perhaps come back in 2021 when we've seen what Sally's got in Series 2.
I talked to Sally the other day. She came to see me and I was talking about Series 2. I said, are you going to actually go to Switzerland? Yeah, well, she will. Scotland, perhaps. We have to find a mountain, of course, and climb mountains.
Yeah. So it might be nice to see what they cover in Series 2.
But did they go to Copenhagen?
They did, yeah, for the ball scene.
Yes.
That was fantastic. When Anne wore white.
Yeah.
For a one-off.
Yeah.
One-off opportunity. So yeah, there's lots more to talk about, and the fact that just that there's been so much happening over the years, and obviously now it's just boom.
Oh,
hasn't
I
it?
know.
So
I mean,
what's
I'll say for the first 5 years it was obscurity.
Yeah.
You know, I think I was telling the people the other day at the bank field,
Yeah.
and my editor rang me up at the end of June and she said, just tell you how you're doing. I said, oh, all right, that's interesting. She said, at the end of April, before the Diaries went out in America, our book sold 69 copies. So the first week in May, after the first episode had gone out, it sold 2,500. And by the end of June, it sold 10,000. So I say, thank you, America. And all the other people, of course, that are buying the books. Wonderful. Just so long, it just jogged along.
Yeah.
And I think I've been keeping the books rather than the books keeping me. But hey, who knows?
Yeah. And I'm so pleased it's taken off. I think when I started at Shibden sort of 5-6 years ago, I thought, what can I do with no budget to just get this story out there? It just feels like such an important tale to tell. And from so many avenues as well, just not only her relationships and her sexuality, but also that she got on with things and she walked back and she defied what was expected of her and wrote 5 million words, which is just epic, really. So just a remarkable woman who really we do have you to thank for sharing with us. So thank you. 35 years worth of work and sharing Anne's story.
Not at all.
So we are going to finish there so that we can have some afternoon tea. But we're going to have a bit of a Q&A, which will carry on as they serve and get some food out. Helena and I are going to be here, so if there's any other questions after that, you want to come and talk to us. We've got books to sign. Find out more. The website is www.annelister.co.uk. If you want to visit Shibden Hall, if you've not been, and find out more about what they're up to, it's www.calderdale.gov.uk/museums. You don't have to remember, just Google Shibden Hall. And on Twitter, we're at Helena Whitbread, I'm at Endeavour Films, and then at Shibden Hall. Follow them and let you know about future events, talks, everything that we're doing to share Anne's legacy and her work, and also we'll be sharing everything that Helena gets up to as well, and promoting her books and trying to get the story out there as much as we can. So thank you very much for listening. We'll have a brief break and then we'll do some Q&A whilst we eat. So thank you very much. Thank you, Helena. That's not right.